Welcome, Ed Coambs. Thank you so much for being with us. Ed Coambs is a therapist and a money expert who helps couples fulfill their happily ever after love and money story. It's no secret that couples struggle to connect in their finances. Ed's got all the credentials for us. He's got an MBA, he's a certified financial planner, and he's a certified financial therapist. Ed believes that money does not have to be a source of constant conflict for couples, so he brings together financial planning, couples therapy, and financial therapy to create happily ever after love and money stories. I am so happy to have you here with me today, Ed.
Yes, thanks, Tracy. I'm thrilled to be here with you, and the work you're doing is so important.
Well, same with the work that you're doing. I know that money conversations are so important, right? I see that in the work that I do. I know that when it comes to divorce, money is very often a significant factor in coming to the decision to divorce. And I know that people who are going through divorce probably can't even imagine dating again, but let's be honest, most of them will date again, even if they don't
Oh, yeah.
ever plan on marrying again or getting divorced. So if we're going to date, money's a really important topic, right?
Absolutely. Whether you're going to be in a married relationship, a long-term committed relationship, or a loose dating relationship, money shows up in no matter how you set up the relationship.
You know, how soon is too soon for people to be talking about money when they're dating? I mean, can you ask about money on the first date?
Yes, you can, and I would invite you to, because you're already talking money. So, in communications, we talk a lot about most communication is nonverbal. Most money communication is nonverbal as well. So you're already talking about money on the first date, whether you know it or not, right? Where do you go on your first date? Well,
Right.
that has some price associated with it. What do you wear has some price to it. You probably talk about jobs at some point. So you're learning about someone's income. So you're already in the money conversation. So why don't we just name it and say, hey, money's a part of our life. If I'm going to be dating someone, I want to be able to talk about it openly.
Well, it's
And just lead
interesting
with that.
because I think a lot of us were raised with the idea that money is a private issue and it's impolite to talk about it. And so it makes people uncomfortable, right?
100%. And yes, we are definitely socialized to not talk about it. And money, there's a right place for money remaining private, right? I don't think we need to go around sharing all of our financial information. But as you're getting to know someone in those first dates, you can start with very general, high level things like, hey, are you comfortable talking about money? And you can it in this conversation, it's hard to say like, oh, you're sitting there in dinner in the middle of dinner, you say, hey Tracy, by the way, are you comfortable talking about money? No, you don't do it. That would be awkward. But
Right.
you just find a natural time to say, hey, what are your experiences been with money? How do you feel about talking about money? And you can use just general, soft, open-ended. So you're not asking like, how much money do you have in the bank? How much do you make per year? You're not even asking what kind of experiences have you had with money. But you can be pretty sure if you're divorced and the other person has been divorced, they've had some negative experiences around money. Let's be honest. By the time you're in adulthood, you've definitely had some painful experiences around money. So we can just go in knowing that.
I think it's not a bad thing to have conversations that will clue you into people's values surrounding money, how they spend or save money. So if I'm talking about, hey, next month I'm going on a vacation, a beach vacation, and I've been saving for this for the last 6 months, that would tell someone a little bit about my approach to money, that probably I save for a vacation and plan it carefully and then go, versus someone maybe who might put it on a credit card. But talking about that opens up the door for a further conversation, right?
100%. I think you're right. We're talking about money all the time and we're giving clues to people about how we deal with money. The question is, are we listening with that mind of, am I trying to learn how this person relates to money? Or am I trying to remain kind of head in the clouds? I don't really want to think about this. And there's a lot of people that
Mm.
don't really want to think about how somebody else relates to money or how they relate to money. Now, you and I are money nerds, so we can't probably stop thinking about how people navigate money. But there's a lot of people that just would feel uncomfortable thinking about it. But if you're going to form a long-term relationship with someone, you really want to try to go with eyes wide open as much as possible. How does this person relate to money? And that's a great example is how do they talk about planning for a trip? And that might be a great money conversation is like, hey, how do you like to plan for trips?
Right. Or,
How do you like to
I like to talk
go ahead?
sometimes about an experience growing up, like when it's the holiday season and we're talking about gift giving. I like to talk about how, as I was a child, there wasn't a whole lot of money for gifts. And so, Santa would bring us pajamas and things that we needed, but that seemed like fun gifts to us, et cetera. Right. And that will
Yeah,
clue someone into my background on money. And you could start learning a lot more about someone with those kinds of conversations.
absolutely. And I think the other thing that it's so easy to take for granted, but once you hear this, it's like, no duh. We all
Right.
have a money history. None of us come through our childhood without any experiences related to money. We all have experiences. So the bigger question is how have those experiences shaped us and continue to shape us? And the big thing I work on with my clients is are you reacting to or against that experience?
Hmm.
Right. So it's like, I just felt so terrible about getting those pajamas. I'll never give my kids clothes. That's ridiculous. I'm only going to get them the funnest toys. Or it's like,
Mm.
God, my parents were so smart and so practical, and I'm just so proud of pajamas. I just don't understand these parents that want to buy nice, fun toys for their kids. That's ridiculous,
Hmm.
right? Two very different responses to the same experience. But maybe the middle response, this is Ed's thinking, right? Is I think the healthier adaptive response is like, wow, I'm so glad my parents were able to do what they did and they were thoughtful with the pajamas. And you know what? I do want to make sure we also give the kids some nice toys, maybe with pajamas, like a more balanced kind of approach.
Right, right, certainly. So let me go a little bit more technical into your area of expertise because you talk a lot about financial intimacy. And so I want our listeners to understand what financial intimacy is.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's such an important word combination that I'm advocating getting out there for us to use, right? So, intimacy is the experience of being known and being safely known and vulnerable, whether that's emotional intimacy or sexual intimacy. And so, we just take that into the field of personal finance and we're breaking that social taboo of like, this is a private topic, or this is a dirty topic, or it's an inappropriate topic, and say, no, this is an appropriate topic. And so you're able to look your partner eye to eye when you talk about money. You're not looking up and away or head down, or you're not blowing up or collapsing, but you're just able to have a conversation back and forth about what money means, represents. You can navigate both comfortable emotions, joy, excitement, intrigue, or you can work through difficult emotions like shame and anger and resentment, right? Because we have all the emotions tied to money. This is the other thing is there's an emotion tied with a money memory for all of us. So yeah, we're not all positive, we're not all negative, but we can have all the emotions. So I'll stop there.
I don't think that most people know that that financial intimacy exists as a thing. And I don't think that people sometimes realize how intimate it can be talking about money. There's so many feelings associated with money. It is something that really shapes us, for those of us who grew up with not a whole lot, that created some feelings about money. Anywhere you end up on the spectrum of how much money you had creates some feelings, and people don't realize that can be a very intimate thing to talk about.
Yeah, and I think that this is also kind of a counter message to what so many people say about money. Money is a rational thing. It's just the numbers, right? That's some percentage of people say that. And there's a part of money where it is just objective, 1 + 1 = 2, right? But we're humans before we're rational, and we're emotional meaning makers before we're logical. So what we know about early childhood development is kids are nervous system based first, then emotions, and then lastly, their cognitive abilities develop over a very long period of time. But their core nervous system is online. Fight, flight, and freeze is already online at birth. Their emotional system is online and developing. but their ability to think critically and reflectively like you and I do as adults, not there at all. So what happens is kids are growing up in families through the first 5 years of their life. They're having all these experiences without a very sophisticated language set. They're hearing and feeling all the money conversations. And so the meaning of money is already internalized by the age 5, because we make meaning by emotion, not by logic. Logic explains the emotional ties we have to money.
Okay, you also talk a lot about attachment styles in relationships. And again, I think that's not something that a lot of people know about. So I would love to have you explain to us what attachment styles are.
Gladly. So attachment styles grows out of this whole field of study in psychology that's been around for 80 plus years. But really the fundamental question of attachment is, how does the bonding relationship shape someone's psychological experience of relationships and relational expectations? And so over 80 years of research, what they know is that adults grow into primarily one of 4 categories of relating to experiences: secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. So the securely attached individual generally feels comfortable in relationships, both with another person and with themselves. If things get a little sideways, they also are typically confident that they can repair and recover. Sounds pretty good. The research would say about 50%, 55% of the population is securely related. That leaves the other half of us, plus or minus a little bit, 40%, that are either anxiously attached, avoidantly attached, or disorganized. Anxious attached are those kind of clingy, nervous about, is the relationship going to be okay? I'm always trying to please and connect, but I'm never really sure that I have. And even when you reassure me that everything is okay, I don't really believe you, right? Versus the avoidant is on the other end of this continuum, where they're like, what? Feelings? Me? Trust you? No. Distance. Stay away. You're getting too close, right? And so oftentimes what we see in partnering is an anxious and avoidant will initially partner. And it's a merry-go-round experience relationally. So when you're re-entering the dating environment, if you can get informed about the different attachment styles and start to learn about the signs of how people experience relationships, boy, you're going to be able to pick out the partner that you're with a lot more effectively, because this is also going to set the stage for how you navigate money conversations.
I love that. And that's a great segue into talking about some of the money conversations that people need to be having. As I mentioned before, I think it's important to know your partner's values surrounding money, how they like to spend and save and things like that. So we talked about the fact that you can start asking money questions right away, probably are soft selling that right away, not diving in too deep on that first date.
Right.
But what are some of the important money questions that we should think about asking as we do, maybe go into dates 2, 3, 4, 5 and into a period of time with someone?
Yeah, I think there's probably, golly, I would start with kind of talking about, can we talk about how much money that we're making currently? Right. Mm-hmm. Income is a kind of a safer place to start with. And is there comfort there? Where we want to be getting to is, what's your net worth? And for me, net worth is such a huge marker of overall financial security. Now, if someone says, I don't know what that is, that's okay. This is not about judging, but it does give you a level of how aware are they of how to manage wealth. Mm-hmm. I don't know a wealthy person that doesn't understand net worth. Right. So if you have someone that's not thinking about net worth at all, there's probably going to be some problems. This is not a judgment. This is reality based on experience. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're hearing this and you're feeling squirmy in your chair, that's okay, because you can learn to do net worth statements, because it's only addition and subtraction. It's the only math you need to know. No advanced math necessary. But becoming conversant on that. So, but that is about knowing the numbers, but it's also, a lot of people have this fear of, well, I don't want someone to think I'm trying to marry them for their money, or I don't want to be trying to be married for their money. Now, for many people that have been divorced, they may already have accumulated assets that they also have intention for giving to their kids, but maybe not for a future partner. So that becomes a very important financial conversation to start having. And where this leads many couples is into the uncomfortable zone of prenuptials. But at some point, you want to start to broach into that conversation. I see you starting to smile, Tracy. What's coming to mind as I say that?
Because I'm a huge fan of prenuptial agreements. Even if you don't think that you have a lot of money or have enough money to need one, I like them because they are a roadmap for what would happen if we ever split, number one. So we can decide now, if we ever split, here's how we want things to play out. And we're deciding this when we're all happy and in love. But number two, what people don't understand is a prenup can be an outline for how we manage our money during our relationship while we are together. It can be a really great tool for that as well.
Yes. And so I think the most important thing is when we approach prenuptials from a healthy, proactive standpoint, not from a super self-protective standpoint, that can be very protective. It can be very productive.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think what ends up getting happen is couples don't know how to navigate through that conversation. So this is where I say, you want to get an outside support to help you navigate through that conversation, because it's going to be a loaded conversation. I've yet to find it not be a loaded conversation.
Right.
And because what you don't want to have happen is have one partner feel like they're getting the short end of the stick.
Right.
Because then the prenup becomes a source of resentment built into the relationship. So that's where we've got to be very intentional about how you go about that process of designing and talking through the prenuptial agreement. And until you both can look each other in the eye and say, I feel really good about this, the prenuptial is not done right.
How can we encourage more open and honest communication about money with our partners?
This is very much the therapist response, right? Is you need to know your own relationship with money. You need to understand what different emotions are tied to money for you. You need to be able to get comfortable with where am I comfortable talking about money and where am I uncomfortable? And then what can I do to get more comfortable? Because until you get comfortable in certain areas about talking about money, you're going to make it uncomfortable for the other person. Here's one of the biggest money traps I see is that the money expert, I'm using air quotes, so a CPA, a CFP, a finance professional, thinks that they are really comfortable with money, but what they don't recognize is that they actually have a layer of anxiety sitting just beneath their intellectual understanding of money, and their partner is picking up on the anxiety around the money. And so if you're disconnected from your own anxiety about money and the way that it goes, your partner is going to disengage. Also, to keep in mind is your partner does not see you as a CPA, as a CFP, as a finance professional. They see you as their partner.
Right.
Yes, they know you have that role. And depending on the psychological makeup, that can also create a built-in power differential. Well, you already know so much, so I'm just going to defer to you. So humility is a really big factor if you're the money expert, to bring yourself on equal. We are equal partners in this relationship. I am not the professional to my partner in this relationship.
Right.
I am the partner. So partner versus professional. This is why hiring a professional can be so helpful, because then you can really show up as partner, not as professional. Now,
well, and that disinterested third party, who has no dog in the fight, is going to give you the objective view, is going to offer you strategies for how to negotiate with one another, come to agreements. I think the third party is always beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the psychology is very clear. In therapy world, they say you cannot be a therapist to your own family.
Right.
Because you're not impartial. You're blind to so much of what's going on. And your family will not see you as a therapist. They will see you as their son, their daughter, their father, their mother, whatever role you happen to be. So, yeah.
Well, again, I know for many of our listeners, they're in the process of divorce. Dating might be the furthest thing from their minds right now, but the reality is someday they're probably going to dip their toes back into dating again. And it's going to be important for them to have some skills. And now they're going to know just a little bit more about talking about money. You have a special free resource that you want to offer our listeners, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, listeners, you may have caught up on the attachment style stuff. I have an attachment style quiz that will be available in the show notes that you can take that so you can start to get a clue. You probably already have an inkling like, oh, yeah, I'm probably that one. But go ahead and take the assessment to help with the confirmation. And you'll also see how it shows up in your money relationship.
And then you also have a course on money that you have available, do you not?
I do. It's a course called, drumroll please, The Couple's Guide to Financial Intimacy. And right, so if you're thinking like, okay, great, Ed, I get it. We need to have money conversations, but I don't know what questions to ask. The Couple's Guide to Financial Intimacy will take you through 10 major areas of your personal financial life and give you lots of exercises and questions to use to both understand yourself and your partner better.
That
And
sounds
for your
fabulous.
listener, yes, and for your listeners, I will have a 30% discount code in the show notes as well.
Oh, thank you so much. So there you go, the couple's guide to financial intimacy, and you are already making a good money move because you're going to get 30% off. We will have all the information in the show notes. Ed, as always, it was so good to see you and talk with you. You shared such wonderful knowledge. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tracy, for an opportunity to talk with you, and thank you for the work that you're doing as well.